Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Rana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we will be talking about two very important stories. The first is in reference to the current political situation, especially in the aftermath of the announcement by the PTI chairman on his long march that culminated in Rawalpindi on the 26th of November. And he made a decision to move out from the assemblies in KP and in Punjab, and also mass resignations from all seats of PTI. Effectively, of course, moving towards a call which he believes can possibly pave the way for an early call of election, something of course that the PDM has denied, and they have said that they have many legal and constitutional options available on the table to prevent that from happening, and that there will be no call for early elections, and in fact they will be held on time. These discussions of course have also been carried out within the political leaderships of both the parties, and of course the kind of actions that we're going to be seeing in the coming days have of course a lot of potential to impact the current political situation. So we will be taking a look at what strategies are going to be employed by the PTI, whether or not they will go through with this particular decision, and then of course when we take a look at the timeline of previous such announcements as well, whether or not this will be something that will happen soon. There is of course the PTI's announcement of a decision to be taken probably by the end of this week after meetings with the assemblies in KP and Punjab, but of course much remains to be seen. The political leadership of the PDM and also the PPP have met to talk about this particular issue and to see what exactly can be the options employed by the government, including the option of a no confidence motion and of course the imposition of governor's rules. So of course these areas are going to be the focus of our first segment, where we'll be taking a look at the current evolving dynamics and what the future political scenario would be like. Our second segment is going to focus on the economic situation of the country, something of course that has been speculated much and unfortunately also politicized and has impacted the economic conditions even more so. The Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has also talked about how the government has had to take very, very tough decisions, and this was because the economy needed those decisions, and it is because of these actions by the government that Pakistan is out of the crisis situation and is not going to default, as the speculations keep on talking about. So we are going to be taking an in-depth analysis of the current economic situation, where we stand right now, and what this means, especially in terms of the 9th review of the IMF, and then also of course the major payment that Pakistan has to make, which the Finance Ministry keeps on reiterating will be made so, with the State Bank Governor also talking about how this is going to be done perhaps even prior to the 5th of December when it's due. So we're going to be taking a look at all of this and what it means for Pakistan, especially given the political scenario as well. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farooq Batafi, and another very special guest has also joined us in the studios, Ms. Mariam Chaudhry, who's also an analyst. Thank you very much, Mariam, for being a part of the debate. We've also been joined online by guest barrister Humayun Sarfaraz Jatta, who's a legal expert, and Rana Maqbool Ahmad, who's Senator PMLN. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the debate. Let me start with you, Mariam, considering of course that this is the scenario that we are currently in, with the PTI's announcement coming in and of course a lot of options now being discussed on the table by both the sides. What do you make of this particular move, considering of course that the PTI has been talking about many other initiatives and moves in the past, much of which was also based on this long march, and then of course at the culmination of that we saw that this decision has now come out. What sort of political gain does the PTI hope to achieve out of this?
Thank you, Sana, for having me over. I think it's quite clear that Mr. Imran Khan is still on the warpath. We know that this warpath has been continuing since this whole political upheaval has been taking place in the country, and I think there's general consensus that the focus of this whole political upheaval was centered around the change of guard of the Chief of Army Staff. So now that that critical point of collision is sort of over, So we see that the fizz in the political events is dissipating, and it's quite frustrating at a certain level for Mr. Imran Khan, who has a one-point agenda of summoning in the elections on a very early basis. So I think he's left with very limited options, and there's a very drastic and sort of a very potent weapon that he has, and he's decided to ignite it. Will it be beneficial for him is a question mark, because we see that the Election Commission of Pakistan has given its stated position that even if the provincial assemblies are dissolved, the federal or the National Assembly will still remain intact. So the interesting thing to note is that if we're doing a cost-benefit analysis, technically Mr. Imran Khan would be losing his own assemblies, because he has the government in KP and he has the government in the Punjab. And if he loses those, he's in a way cutting off his nose, political nose, to spite his own.
But that's the risk he's taking.
Yeah, to spite his political face. Yeah. So he's going to lose his own assemblies, and maybe he's hoping that he can come back with bigger numbers. But that's not the agenda. The agenda is to dislodge the PDM government. It's to dislodge the national government, because the main and the core seat of power is what the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is aiming for. But right now, it doesn't look like this is a very risk-free scenario for him, because like I said, the ECP has said that it will not result in a dissolution of the National Assembly. And also, he's activated his political opponents in searching for solutions to, this trick or this whole, card that he's putting on the table.
Right. Farooq, considering, of course, this decision by the PTI, it's a big risk that they're willing to take, but they, of course, hope to achieve something out of it, and are assuming that because of this move, they perhaps will be able to pressurize the government into calling for the general elections, since elections will be held on such a large number of seats. But the resolution, as Ms. Mariam was talking about, is something that is perhaps possible, even if we look at the current options that the government seems to apply. Is that not so?
Right, Sana, as I've been pointing out in the past as well, one thing that aging does to you is that you actually start weighing human life more than ideology. And one thing, there's a coterie of people who will always keep on oohing and eyeing whatever, no matter whatever Imran Khan Sahib does. But there seems to be something that he did wrong. He got the order wrong. Usually, if you first resign from the assemblies and then start agitating. He first went for agitation, and finally he returned to his second best, that is resigning from assemblies. Even now, I don't know what exactly are the consultations about, because in the past we were told that everyone is ready, and the moment he says it, everybody is going to resign. And in Punjab Assembly, there is a complicating factor, because Assembly has been in session for 4 months, and when it is in session, you cannot move any vote of no confidence, and that's where the CM is going to stay. And the CM can actually decide the day they end the session immediately, like they tried to do with the Federal Assembly. They actually can dissolve it, and the federal government or the opposition in the Punjab government cannot do much about it. So there are scenarios. So what is behind this this much time that they have taken, right? That actually tells you that everything is not hunky-dory, and not everything is as good as they think it is. And the bit about human life that I wanted to actually bring up, this long march continued, and we know that Imran Khan Sahib was attacked also. But even when people were not attacked, Sana, there was cause to long march, right? First day in, a journalist fell to her death. A couple of days later, there was a massive, traffic accident, and 2 young men actually succumbed to that accident. And that kind of situation has continued even right now. You're telling me that all these optics that actually killed people were just optics, and they were only a preparation for resigning from the system, a system that you might not be able to return to. These are worries that I have. I don't have any dog in this fight. I don't care whether elections are tomorrow or after 4 months or 10 months. My concern is, why keep on trying to create this kind of instability when you could have gone for this option without all that hoopla that we witnessed past few months.
Right, absolutely. Let us also welcome our guests who've joined us online. Barrister Mayo, let me start with you first. Considering, of course, that we're talking about the decision and the announcement by the PTI's side with regards to the dissolution of the assemblies, there's much that has been talked about of what is legally and constitutionally possible. And there are, of course, many concerns with regards to whether or not this can actually happen. Can you help us understand what sort of options are available for the PTI to actually go through with this? And then, of course, when we take a look at the PDM deciding not to let this happen and not to let it impact the call for Kali elections, what sort of options exist for them as well?
Oh, Sana, I think as far as PTI is concerned, they have two major options to be exercised. One is to resign from the assemblies, from National Assembly and the Punjab Assembly and the KP Assembly, and the seats they hold in other assemblies of Balochistan and Sindh. And the other option is to dissolve the assemblies, which they can exercise in Punjab and KP because they have their governments there. So I think they have plenty of options, and it depends really what the PDM will decide to, how the PDM decides to tackle this situation. I think again the courts will have very important role to play in this situation because the PDM has already announced yesterday and even today that they are going to stop PTI from doing any such act. So let us see how they can do this if they file no confidence movement. Because the PDI is saying the assemblies are in session, no confidence movement cannot be moved at this situation. So I think the courts have very important role to play.
Chetta Sahab, sorry to cut you here. I understand that you're talking about the what exactly are the options. My question is regarding what you just said, regarding going to the courts. Whenever political forces fight, we end up actually empowering institutions or ceding more political autonomy to the institutions which are not elected or which are not representative of public. Don't you think that if it ends with the courts, PTI is actually in essence weakening and the other parties are also essentially weakening the cause of democracy?
So that is the very unfortunate reality of Pakistan. I think that's what the political parties are constantly creating space for, I would say, non-political institutions. So it is with the political parties to play a very serious role and not to give space to non-political actors. So I think that's my views that political parties should sit and devise a way where they can have, I would say, which is acceptable to everyone. Because Imran Khan wants election and PDM wants time. They want to time at least. I think
right,
they're of the
absolutely.
view
Let us
that they
hear
need.
from Rana Sahab as well, who will perhaps give us a better idea of what the PDM is planning to do. Rana Sahab, first of all, whether or not this was something that was expected in terms of the decision that has come out from the PTI, perhaps something that the PDM kept talking about in the past. Did you expect that to actually happen and this call to be actually given by the PTI? And secondly, considering that now there are different things that are being mulled over, what seems to be the plan of action moving forward?
Especially in Punjab, sir.
Thank you, Sana. Thank you, Patafi Sahab. Thank you, other colleagues. It's a defeat which was invited by the PTI leader. His calculations are generally wrong. He thought that he'll dethrone the government surrounding the capital, and he has been threatening all along. He also underestimated the strength of the federal government to react to begin with. And he also overestimated his agitational capability. So he has been exposed totally as far as this mechanics of his agitation and in a way revolt against the federal government is concerned. It's therefore he reconsidered his position, and now he has retreated his previous stances. That speaks volumes for his incapability to understand and to analyze, along with his colleagues. They always play to the gallery, talk loud, but they don't understand the intricacies of these political moves. Now he has come down to the provincial assemblies. Mr. Patafi, my honorable friend, is rightly pointed out. If he had to do this, why did he create and generated so much of commotion and smile in the country? At what cost? Didn't he know that it will cost a lot to the people and to the country? The economy, which is already very severely ailing, it was an additional encumbrance on the economy. So he is not a man with any imagination. Now he has come down. I'll try to dilate on certain legal issues, despite the fact though I'm a law student, but I'm not fully conversant about certain laws. But as far as this assembly issue is concerned, it has been intentionally done. Had they been serious in dissolution of the assemblies, why did they wait for? They should have gone for dissolution within half an hour, because the chief minister has to send an advice to the governor. What are they thinking for? So it means they are double-minded and they have not decided, because they know it that during this process there will be motions for no confidence, and there will be a resolution against this process. So once a resolution or motion is there, filed with the assembly, maybe assembly is in session or not, the issue is that this will not be carried out, but the motion can be filed. Once the motion or resolution is there on the speaker's table, the process is stopped and no action can be taken. So therefore the assembly will continue. So that is the real law. That is, if we read the Article 112, that sufficiently explains the situation which I am talking about. And if we also read the rule and procedure of the Punjab Assembly 22 and 23, they speak volumes for what I am saying. Therefore,
right. Rana Sahab, does that mean that that's what you're counting on in terms of course, the kind of aspects that you're highlighting, or will the PTM be willing to take any sort of preemptive steps?
Yes, they have already got the signatures. Maybe the motions are filed in the morning tomorrow, because the PTI didn't want to take action on this account which they announced, because they are, in a way, suffering contradictions in all their actions, unfortunately. And look at he was so proud of his popularity, it has come down like anything. So therefore, I don't think...
But quickly, let me just point out one thing, and of course you can continue that. One complaint regarding Rana Sahab. Rana Sahab is actually credited to his profession. He's an intellectually sound man. But PMLN has actually taken to something that is quite interesting. Whenever we actually asked them about their strategy, they ended up talking about PTI or the legal interpretation. They're very smart. Not their own strategy. But over to you, Sana.
Because they're playing on the defense in a way. They're not wanting a confrontation. It's being put on the table in front of them. I think
I'll come to you, Rana Sahab. Yes,
I think there's a question that was being asked again and again about the timing of this option that's been played out by PTI, and I think it comes at the heels of a very important institutional appointment. So it seems that it's a knee-jerk kind of a response, because a lot of the people, especially the lobbyists with Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, feel that after this key appointment, perhaps the chances of PTI are becoming dimmer, because there was a pressure from the party to involve institutions of the state into the political process.
And
there's a clear position which has been taken that the institute is going to remain apolitical.
A question for you, a follow-up. Appointment has already been made, right? And at that time also the announcement was made that who is going to become the next chief. So you are not in advantageous position. Why would you throw away the advantage you have in Punjab Assembly then?
Because it's a knee-jerk reaction. That's what I'm saying. It seems to come right at the heels of a very important development. And also the institute has evinced their determination towards remaining apolitical. So it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction, and that's exactly what I'm saying, that it may not favor Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in the longer term, because it's not a risk-free strategy. You may feel that you can pressure the government.
You're saying they haven't thought this through.
Well, you're losing your own governments without the guarantee of dislodging the federal government. So you will be losing what you have, and perhaps you're counting in that you'll come back with bigger numbers, but there are no guarantees, because we've seen in the by-elections that 1 or 2 seats where the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf had a previous majority was swapped over. So anything can happen when you go to the actual elections. But one thing we must remember, it's a very costly process for the country. So when Farooq said that there's no dog in the fight, I think the dog for everyone.
No, I was talking about myself.
Yeah, but, the economy concerns all of us.
Jettisoned all my ideological baggage.
But Farooq, the economy concerns everyone. So I think it's a
Right.
very costly and damaging
Considering,
process.
of course, when we take a look at all of this, there is this big risk that we've been talking about. And Rana Saab, what Ms. Mariam is talking about is the fact that perhaps this is not going to fall through in terms of what the PTI expects or hopes to. But again, you were also talking about, and you can add to what you were previously wanting to say as well, but before that, you were also talking about how what has happened with regards to the Long March has spoken volumes with regards to the PTI, has exposed them, so to speak. But when we take a look at so many other incidents that can also, we can also say has exposed the PTI or has spoken volumes about what the leadership is like, hasn't really impacted the political mileage that the PTI still continues to enjoy. And of course, there is a foundation or baseline on which they are trying to make this particular move. So when we take a look at the responses, of course, in terms of the strategy that is needed to go ahead, surely there must be other things that the PDM will be basing their future actions on, rather than just the fact that this has harmed PTI's credibility.
Sana, there will be new factors now, which we are not analyzing at all. I may very respectfully submit the scenario has altogether changed after the new setup in the armed forces has taken over, and there'll be a new stance vis-a-vis the politicians, and that will be very helpful for the PDM. Number 2 factor will be that the leader of PMLN will be coming to the country. Now he'll be leading the campaign. Once he leads the campaign along with his popular daughter, things will change. Maybe the tables are turned on PTI, who are so boastful of their popularity. So these factors we must consider, because once the main leadership was not here, PMLN didn't work hard. We all say in our open and secret meetings, the Muslim League and they faltered. They didn't endeavor properly. If we try to analyze the election campaign, both and by-elections, for example, I'll give you one example only. Shizra from Nankana, she lost by 10,000-12,000 votes to the greatest leader ever was born in the subcontinent. She lost her election by 11,000 votes. What does it mean? If she would have got 5,500 or 6,000, she would have won the elections. Nobody went there to support her. Not even an MNA, not even the leadership. They didn't even communicate with her. So that was the level of response of PMLN. No, it will not happen. It will not be allowed to happen by the main leadership once they are coming back. So the scene will change, and I expect and I can predict the results of election which we envisage will be altogether different against PTI and for PMLN. That factor is to be analyzed. Now,
Right.
this thing, I may submit one thing only. This is a planned thing since his venture to topple the government through agitation and force fizzled out. He wanted some excuse to wriggle out of the situation. He has wriggled out of the situation. They are not serious about dissolution of assembly.
All right, point taken, Rana Saab. Barrister Humayun, considering
the time for
that
dissolution has gone.
This is something that is
time
being
for
discussed in terms
the
of
time
what
for
the PTI will
dissolution
go
is
through.
gone. They are behind time. Mariam is absolutely correct. Thank you
Right,
very much.
absolutely, Rana Saab. I'll go to Barrister Humayun now. Barrister Humayun, considering, of course, that when we take a look at what is happening with regards to the PTI's decision, there is the obvious concern of what is going to happen if they actually go through with it. But I want to understand the difference and distinction which was being discussed yesterday as well in terms of the dissolution and mass resignations as well. In terms of course, the impact that that's going to have on whether or not we're going to be looking at elections on various seats, and how exactly is that going to impact the call for general elections, which of course is is the PTI's aim. Considering, of course, that even though such a large number of seats can potentially call the argument of then moving ahead with the general elections, this is still something that can actually legally happen. And exactly what will be the scenario or the case where we can possibly move towards general elections instead of elections on almost 2/3 of the seats. And then, of course, considering the assemblies are not dissolved and only we have mass resignations, will that impact this particular scenario as well?
Well, Sana, if I speak in legal terms, if resignations are given, then re-elections will be held in the next 2 months. And on the other hand, if assemblies are dissolved, then the new elections will be held for the Punjab Assembly and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly. And I think it will have different dimensions from the resignations. As far as its connection with the general election is concerned, I think that depends on the response of the government. If they are able to hold their horses, or if they show some kind of are able to sustain these resignations or the political move of the Imran Khan, then I think situation will be different. So I think it can only be said after the resignations or the assemblies are dissolved that what will be the political response of the government. As far as the legal response is concerned, that is for the election commission to conduct elections. And as far as the political response is concerned, that if the federal government also agrees to the general election, that will be a different question. I think the PDM might also be waiting for the response of the public, or after the Imran Khan will play his moves. I think that really will depend on that particular situation. It is very difficult right now to say anything. As Rana Sahab was saying, they are very much committed to run this government. But I think the real situation will only be clear when the time will come. That's my point of view.
All right. Farooq, of course, when we take a look at this scenario, the specific situation and what PTI or the PDM will do is one thing. But since, of course, this political instability has existed, we have seen that it's not just the economic cost, but also the political cost that all of us seem to be paying in terms of these issues not being addressed in the parliament. And you've emphasized the role of the parliament multiple times. But instead of that, we're still focusing on perhaps one-upping each other, and right now looking at where exactly will the PDM stand or the PTI stand. But are there any real clear winners out of this situation, even if we see this scenario resolving in any sort of way? Because at the end of the day, the political issues still remain as it is. The role of the parliament still remains as it is.
Clever.
So now I have a solution.
Very clever question. Rana Sahab, you want to say something?
I have a solution, sir. I have a solution to this problem. Okay. I think only one step is to be taken by the PTI leader. He should cease to be a provocative speaker. He should stop abusing people. He should give up his style, derogatory style. He should come on.
Let me quickly take Farooq's opinion and I'll come back to you.
I'm finishing it, Sana. He should come on the parley table. He should return to the parliament, sit for the negotiations like a decent and polished politician. The issue will be resolved. You might have come to know about the version of the government, and Rana Sanaullah also spoke on that time and again. We are prepared to have negotiations. He said there is no problem if we change the schedule of the election. That's not much of a problem for us. But he should come down like an astute politician to solve and address the issue.
There are many shoulds, Rana Sahab, but my question is a little different. Farooq, let's hear your opinion on that.
I was last I checked, I was complimenting your question because it was a very clever one. Who is the winner? I can tell you, one winner is People's Party that keeps on gaining. Look at Kashmir, look at Southern Punjab, look at what has happened in Sindh. I think that repeatedly it is People's Party that keeps on actually coming back to life bit by bit, because both these parties, that ideological equivalents, they keep on fighting all the time. It is about time that one message I've been repeating ad nauseum on television and in my columns as well, that it is virtually impossible to recreate two events. One, 1992 World Cup. Every time there's a World Cup, we end up actually comparing that event to 1992. I don't know why. And it never happens. And secondly, the PNA's movement. PNA's movement actually brought up an elected government down. That is not going to happen. Yeah, it can accelerate some kind of end of government. Earlier, Mariam was talking about dog in the fight and all that bit. Look, we know that elections are going to take place, right? It is practically the end of the term. The last year has started already. So there will be an election. When it happens is not that much a big lookout for me, that because eventually there is going to be an election no matter what.
Yeah, we're talking inches over here, so it's a matter of couple of months, take or give a few months.
Yeah. No, hang on, allow me to actually finish my thought. But regarding, this transition business and everything, Sana, today there was a ceremony of transition of power within army in Rawalpindi. So I was also there. One perk of these events is you walk into a lot of important people, right? So I accidentally walked into, Governor Punjab, and I kept on hounding him with questions. What exactly is your strategy? He did answer. Then I said, okay, may I actually quote you on air? He says, no, it is, you are saying something. I'm not saying anything, right? So at this moment, I think that PMLN is playing its cards very close to its chest. It is keeping the cards very close to its chest. I think that in Punjab, then other leaders actually said that they are going to play with this situation in Punjab. So there is going to be some kind of extended period where there is going to be more uncertainty, more anticipation of elections. But in the end, it all comes back to Imran Khan Saab and his wisdom, quote unquote, of actually trying to shake the system to its very bones, because whenever you try doing that, it ends up actually complicating his own political
It can
path.
backfire. Basically,
it does.
Farooq, if I could just add a little point here, I think that PTI has a point of vulnerability, and the reason why they're having negotiations with some of the key political stakeholders is to walk through those issues. And I think one issue is that there is a law on defections, but there is no law against changing your parties once a fresh election has been called. So we see that a lot of people who've joined PTI have come from other parties, and what's to stop them from walking out once again if they see greener pastures somewhere along the way. So I think moving before we have political tactics like the VNC vote and delaying through different means, but when it comes to the actual elections, a lot of politicking historically happens in Pakistan. So you can always have different lobbies and groups being wooed by other parties. People's Party can always woo someone from the south.
That is the problem with PTI. They think that they have finally hacked into a narrative that undermines all the electables. And this is what they cite when it comes to Punjab by-elections that you mentioned.
They think that, but electables always have other considerations, like someone mentioned Mia Saab might come back. Of course, I think they're riding on some sort of a popularity vote, so it would be difficult, and they don't think people will leave them, but it can always happen, so it is a point of vulnerability.
Right, and let's ask Rana Saab about that. Rana Saab, are you offering the people or anybody else any greener pastures for them to come to your side, and are you counting on that?
Sure, we will put our efforts, by all means, maximum efforts. Number one, as I've mentioned, the government has decided that greener pasture should be given to the PTI. They should come forward, sit in the conference table, dialogue table. There should be full parlays to resolve and address the issue. That is number one. Number two, there's a package being prepared by the leader. I was there in London a few days before. It will be disseminated to the people. And I think that will also bring a change.
Absolutely. Rana Sahab,
little
how much
fragment
emphasis
of
is
welfare.
being made on the first part that you mentioned?
We are very serious about it because we wanted
Is
to
it
resolve
actively
the
being
issue.
pursued at the moment?
Zardari Sahib in
Yes,
Punjab.
yes, it's being pursued.
South
Yeah, and
Punjab.
even the president of Pakistan is trying, maybe he succeeds, because now there is no solution left with the PTI leadership. They'll have to come on the conference table. This move of dissolution of assemblies is also going to fail. It will not work. Yes, there could be a vote of no confidence. Maybe it succeeds. So there is a lot many problems for the PTI as far as all these moves are faltering so massively and so miserably. So they have
Right.
failed to be good planner. Okay, they are absolutely incomparable as far as volleys of abuses and bad language is concerned. I pray and I hope they correct themselves and try to talk
Absolutely.
like
Rana Sahab, we're
very
almost out
decent
of time.
people.
We have to conclude this segment. But Barrister Humayun, anything you'd like to add before we do that?
Well, I think political stability in the near future is on the page, and you can expect practical political moves from all the parties, and it all depends really on the powerful quarters how they will take this thing. I think that will be the would be the final answer to all these questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Rana Maqbool Ahmad, Barrister Humayun Sarfaraz, and of course, Ms. Mariam Chaudhry for taking the time out to be part of this debate in the studios as well. That's all that we have from the first segment. We'll take a short break and continue with the next one. Welcome back to the debate. We're now going to be taking a look at the economic situation of the country that unfortunately is a cause of much speculation, and because of that we see that in turn the economic situation gets impacted much more. There have been many who have been claiming that Pakistan is close to a default, something that has been repeatedly denied by the Finance Ministry and the Prime Minister himself as well, and he has of course also made sure that the investment that needs to come in towards Pakistan from various countries, especially his recent trip to Turkey as well, is important in terms of bringing forth the economic progress. We also know that the Finance Ministry keeps on reiterating that Pakistan will be repaying the big chunk that is due on the 5th of December, way before time. And we also know that $500 million US have come in from the Asian Development Bank to the State Bank of Pakistan, which is a good development. But Farouk, considering of course the numerous amount of information that our viewers get to receive, there's perhaps a need for clarity in terms of what is going on. And of course, the clarity seems to be given by the government and the PM as well. But there is still so much that is being speculated and talked about that every now and then we keep on hearing the word default. And because of that, there is, of course, a lot of concern as to what is going on. Of course, there are tough decisions that have been made, but they were necessary for the current economic situation and for it to progress further. Where exactly do we stand right now? And of course, in terms of the recent development that is coming very soon in the future with regards to the payment that Pakistan has to pay, and of course the 9th review that is still looming by the IMF, what prospects of the economy does Pakistan have at the moment?
Right. Sana, given that this is a topic that you actually selected and you advocated for this as well, actually what I should be doing is asking you to actually give us some solace. But let me ask you another very simple question. And it has nothing to do with economics, but I want to make a point later. Do you believe in these new agey stuff, the secret and the law of attraction and all that, that whatever you think about becomes a reality? Do you?
I don't know if you're talking about it in just purely economic terms, but I guess in some aspects of life, maybe. Yes.
Yeah. But so there's this movie, right? And that, actually brings me to my second point, that we have this habit of converting Murphy's Law, that which can go wrong, will go wrong, right? Into, transform it into some kind of law of gravity or law of physics. Unfortunately and gratefully, unfortunately, because we keep on trying it, and gratefully because usually it does not happen. But all this talk about default is going to force people to think that we might default and somebody might actually start dropping the scales, right? But at this moment, Bloomberg has come up with its own prediction, the entire year's assessment of Pakistan, and it says that there's hardly any chances of default. We were talking about credit swaps the other day, right? And we just actually highlighted how unreliable, a matrix that is to actually gauge what exactly is happening. Right now, Pakistan has only one liability in the month of December, and it was the Sukuk bonds, and we had to pay that $1 billion. And, State Bank of Pakistan actually announced a few days ago that it is going to actually pay up the amount a few days earlier than it was due, right? On 2nd, I guess. So it is clear that Pakistan is not going to default. But at this moment, if this government is sitting in power, and if it does not immediately wants to go for elections, the best argument it has is of economics. On one side, you have floods. 33% Pakistan is affected. 33 million people have been displaced, and they are still affected. And IMF is and other international donors or partners are asking us to give a detailed plan of recovery before we can actually negotiate the next tranche.
Right.
So you cannot do that if you are going to give, introduce a plan and then immediately you had 2 elections, because then there are going to be 2 very important moving parts. The first thing is there is going to be a caretaker government for 2 months to 3 months. That caretaker government, by its own, interpretation, the previous caretaker governments have decided that they cannot take any long-term decision. That means you have a fugue state for 3 months whenever you have the, a caretaker setup. You cannot take any big steps. Then comes the election, and after election, jockeying and all that power politics. In that, you might even lose a couple of more months. So this is the argument that the government can actually use to its advantage. But because the government at this moment is busy in firefighting, because the economics, and I had actually, if you remember, I had very humbly submitted to the finance ministry that during PTI's time, they actually brought in a person who was full-time a spokesman of finance ministry, and his job was to actually firefight while the policy decisions were taken by the finance minister, right? So at this moment, I think the finance minister is an accessible guy, but it is impossible for him to be everywhere all the time. So if they have some spokesman who quashes all the rumors, that will be really a big confidence building measure. But we are not going to default, that is clear.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that analysis. We'd love to talk more about this, but unfortunately, I've been told that's all we have time for. Thank you, Farooq. We'll see you tomorrow with more news around the world.